Nice walk-up song, thank you. Well, I'm excited to be here this morning to speak to you about adaptive by design, creating multi-device experiences that flow. It's been so much fun to be here, and I'm so thankful to have met a lot of you, learn about your challenges and how we're bringing to life adaptive experiences for our users using tools like generative AI. Doing that in a single device setting is very difficult in it by itself. When you start to add in that our world is a multi-device world, this becomes an even harder problem to solve. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I am a true believer in that the multi-device world isn't 1 to 3 years away. It's not 4 years away. It's here today. Our users and as consumers, I don't know if you're this type of consumer. Maybe I'm a millennial and this is just who I am. But I want everything. I want it right now. I've always wanted it right now. I've never wanted a barrier in between me and my companies that I work with and those that are giving me value. And we know that as product people. We have always sought to meet the user where they are in the moment, both our consumers and our employees. The larger the barriers we put up in between you interacting with our organization, the lower the chance that you're actually going to find value from it. And so when we're thinking about a multi-device world and meeting our users where they are, let's use a common user journey that maybe many of us went through to get here. Booking and taking a plane flight. You maybe interacted with your airline on your desktop to book the flight. That's the predominant use case for the desktop in this user journey. But then you probably checked on your flight status or found the right seat for yourself using your tablet. You checked in on your mobile device. That journey needs to be seamless. And that's how we're thinking about multi-device experiences. But when you got to the airport, there was probably a kiosk for your airline that you interacted with as well. And then as you're walking through the airport, there's a bunch of digital signage at this point that are additional touch points that we can create with our consumers if we know how to do this in a seamless way. This is actually what consumers want. They have always wanted that. This is not brand new. As people, we just want everything. It's who we are. And so how you do that and the lower barriers you create to engaging with your consumers, the stronger their loyalty, the more repeat customers you have, and the better employee engagement as well. And so what does that really look like? I don't think endpoint sprawl is going to change. If you talk to your device management teams at your organizations, endpoint sprawl is a term they use for trying to manage the proliferation of devices that we all use to engage with our employers. It's a headache of a problem. A stat really drives this home. Over the last 5 years, in US households, the percentage of connected devices have increased by 60% in just 5 years. It was a little above 8 connected devices 5 years ago, and we're above 13 connected devices per home in 2023. That's an immense growth rate. Now that will probably taper off as we start to find less and less places that we can put screens so we can engage digitally. But as someone who works in digital products, I hope not. I love putting screens in new places and finding new ways to engage with my customers. That gives us more opportunity to create an integrated and immersive experience. Well, and when you think about that, the problem is, us as product teams, our ability to deliver seamless experiences across these multiple device types has actually lagged the number of devices out in the world. It's our problem to fix, not the consumer's problem to fix. They are obviously engaging with more and more device types out in the world. We haven't been able to pull it all together to deliver a cohesive experience. Luckily, over the last 10 years, we've improved on the types of tooling that we have to deliver these types of adaptive experiences across platforms. Specifically, I'm talking about cross-platform development frameworks and generative AI, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, as a product owner out in the world, I would go to my engineering and design teams and I would have this conversation, and as you can tell, I care about meeting the users where they are, and that's how I'd start most of my experience conversations. And my design team and my engineers would talk for a couple of days and they'd come back and they'd say, hey Tony, we got it. I have a desktop experience for you, both Mac and Windows, and I also am going to deliver an iPhone experience. And I would say, you're not getting this. That's not our consumer base. Someone would be really smart in the room and be like, cool, we got responsive designs technology. We'll be able to deliver tablets. We'll also knock out the Android consumers. Well, again, that's not what we're talking about in the world we live in. Someone in the room would be cheeky, and they would say, we got you. Push notifications on watches, on our connected devices. And I would say again, you're missing the point because this is our world. I have connected speakers, I have AR sets, I have kiosks, I have ATMs. I have a refrigerator and a microwave that are all connected. What about my fitness equipment? What about all these different device types out in the world that are opportunities for us to engage with our consumers in a seamless way? And if you do this unobtrusively, this is actually what consumers are looking for. You really want people to kind of step back and be able to work with your organization in a frictionless way while also not being obtrusive into their lives. Right moment, right time. That requires seamless back-end systems, seamless front-end systems. And so, as I've walked around the conference and I've talked to some people, this slide hits home more for me because this was the experience I had as a product owner. I'm trying to bring to life an experience for my users. But I would go to my web team, I'd go to my Android team, I'd go to my iOS team. They all have different Kanban boards, they all have different backlogs. I actually spoke to someone here that was working on an experience and working through 17 different agile trains to deliver that experience. That's wild to me. Trying to do this with just 3, you're faced with these types of trade-off costs. What do? Do I launch after 2 cycles and then walk around and act like I've done my job because I launched an MVP for my users? That's not the right way. Consumers aren't looking for that. And I'm missing the data because how my users engage with my web product may be very different from how they're engaging from my mobile product. Or I'm left waiting 6 cycles because then I can launch everything and I can collect all of the data, but I've missed 4 cycles of learning loops. We're all product people here, and we know how much a learning loop is imperative to continually to make our experiences better. And so what we've left up with, as product people, we make scope decisions, and we're left with inconsistent user experiences. A lot of times, the Android folks, they get left out of an experience, right? A lot of times, wearables. I get the same message on my watch that I do on my phone. I can't read it on my watch. It makes no sense to even have it there. It's terrible experiences, honestly. The next thing that this really has led to is increasing complexity. Organizational complexity is a drag on your business. It's a drag on your ability to move quickly and respond to market conditions. First delivery is difficult in an environment like this. When you're trying to do iterative experiments in an environment like this, trying to know where to launch those experiments is a nightmare, and working through those teams is a nightmare. And when you think about this, the specialization, having engineering teams and design teams that focus on delivering the optimal experience by device type, we've exploded headcount growth and we've made development cost almost prohibitive to being able to deliver these experiences across multiple devices. We have created a negative loop by specialization. By specializing, we haven't been able to then think about what are the other device types, because that's a whole other team I have to spin up to do this. The coordination complexity cost is just not to be underestimated. Now, as product people, we all know that we're trying to balance user desirability, technical feasibility, and also business viability. And I'm going to tell you, user desirability for seamless experiences is there. Technical capability to do that is budding and growing. But fundamentally, business viability, because I had to manage all of these difficult teams, we've made scope decisions that look like this. What I'm talking about today is how we fundamentally lower the development cost curve. At the same time, what that does is increase our velocity as an organization, and we do that with adaptive platforms and generative AI. So, I didn't even start with who I am. I'm Tony. I'm a principal product strategist at Very Good Ventures. I very much am passionate and believe in this is the way society is going. This is the way we need to deliver products for people. Very Good Ventures specialized and was born in developing experiences in complex multi-device worlds. And so I joined Very Good Ventures because this is where I think we are going as a society, and I think we need to be able to deliver products in this way. So I introduced the topic. We've talked a little bit about what multi-device development is and why it is important. We've talked a little bit about what are the challenges and why are we making these difficult trade-off decisions that we have today that are limiting our users' experience. I'm a strategy person and a researcher, and this is a workshop. We're talking shop. We're going to do some work together, too. So I'm going to ask you to help me with a research exercise and a maturity model that we're going to walk through today. Then we'll loop back as a group. We'll talk about some emerging leading practices for delivering these experiences, and then also what rapid prototyping and concept design looks in a multi-device world. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with a maturity model, I'll introduce it. A maturity model is a concept that allows you to assess how your organization is able and capable to deliver types of experiences across a spectrum. From our experience, we've categorized your capabilities into 5 different levels. From level 1 being siloed experiences, where really we're not connecting our experiences across devices or working together as a team to deliver these experiences, all the way through experience innovators at level 5, those organizations that are leading in the world at our ability to deliver. And so my ask for you all is to take out from your packet, take out your handout, and you will see a maturity model handout. For the next couple minutes, if you could read through what each level represents, put a circle where you think your organization is today, and then put a star where you think your organization needs to be to win in your market. The trick here is not everyone needs to be a level 5. This is called strategy, where I get to say it's making trade-off decisions. Melissa, Chelsea, and I will be walking around the room for a few minutes. Please, if you could write the name of your organization on the top of the paper. We would love to collect these if you'd let us and create a data set so we can help guide organizations around the world about how to do this the right way, how their peers are operating as well. So take a few minutes, walk around, and answer any questions. But feel free to read. Just one. Where you are today, put the circle, and then where you'll be, put the star. 1 through 5. 1 through 5. Yeah. Yeah, and what it would sound like are in each of these boxes, so you could get a feel for what it sounds like to operate at that level. Here. Where you're at, put a circle. Okay. Where you think you need to be to win in your marketplace, put a star. Yeah. And if you could put your organization name at the top, we're collecting a database. You don't have to. We will anonymize everything, but obviously, yeah, cool. Oh, wow. I talked to our UX designer at JPMC. He rated themselves a 2. Yeah.
You need to do only one, right?
Correct.
Out of 5, where
Yeah.
we are.
Where you are. Yeah.
That's it.
And then where you want to be, to win in your market.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a 5.
Not for everybody.
Not for everybody.
No.
I don't mean level 5. I mean, what do you want over here? A checkpoint, this is where we want to be?
Yeah.
Okay, we're looking for...
I gotcha. I gotcha. So the star where you think you need to be to win. Now, it's not always a 5 because, if you're an organization that doesn't have a digital experience, you don't need to be a 5, right? So it's tailored to your market.
That's all I'm going to do.
Well done, GS. Cool. Hi.
The question was around represent where you believe your organization is operating today. So
Yeah.
we're kind of operating in a few of these areas. So how do we go about doing that?
Oh.
Put dots around a few, or just
You
one
can.
dot and one star?
Wow.
Preferably 1 dot 1 star.
Preferably 1.1 star, but the model is each of these categories has 5 subcategories, and we can break that out. So it gets much more granular as we go. But at this very high level, yeah, 1 star, 1 circle would be great.
Makes sense?
Yeah, cool.
So do you want the best?
It's
Or do you want, because, okay, so we're extremely siloed.
Yeah.
Within a silo, we could be down hard.
Think about it at the highest level you can as an organization. So if you're operating in these silos, but they're great, are they connected? Are they not connected? In a situation like that, I would probably put yourself in between the 2 and 3 range as an organization if you're doing it really well in silos, right?
Depends on which unit. Some are decent.
Absolutely, absolutely. So use your best, this is an unscientific exercise at the moment, right? So use your best judgment about where you think you are as an entire team. And that's where we'll go from there. Does that make sense? Nope.
It does. It's just my business is enterprise level.
Huge and sprawling.
Business.
Right. And I bet the cost of coordination and the complexity across all of those, difficult. I'm going to bump back up so I can get to like the content section, but I'll talk about it. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All the time it was there. We didn't read the requirement.
I know. Yeah. Thanks, GS. Well, I take UX seriously. I should have put the instructions right on the page. Thanks. You know, like I shouldn't have made you change the context for you to absorb the information.
That's for the ROI.
CGS, you CGS. All right. So thank you, everyone, for walking through that and asking questions. I know this is a very complicated thing to answer because some units in our business may operate differently than other units. What we're talking about is an entire team. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things we've learned at VGV about delivering multi-device experiences. Many of you may be doing a lot of these things, and I'm very happy that you're already operating in that mode. Hopefully some of this is new for you. Hopefully some of you are already operating in some of these ways. One piece of tooling that really helps with adaptive experiences is a cross-platform development framework on the front end. What that does is it takes since microsystems launched Java, code once, deploy everywhere has just been something the tech world has always sought to do. We're getting better at that, and Java didn't work across all device types, so now we're in a new realm of what is the single code base to deploy multiple places. What that does is it eliminates the redundancy and reduces those complexity costs. Additionally, some of these frameworks include additional developer tools like hot reload, where your developers are seeing in real time, without having to make a deployment, the changes they are making. So they're making really fast iterations and being able to see what that looks like. When you add automated testing tools and pre-built widgets, when you move to modern cross-platform frameworks, you're accelerating your front-end development in a way that is very difficult to comprehend unless you've moved to one of these tools. Two things that were really funny, and I love that punch cards are brought up, because I was talking to my dad over the weekend about this, and he started at HP in the early 80s, and he was bragging about how well he knew his zeros and ones. And I was very proud of him, but I was like, you missed the point. Where was the user in that? He was very proud of how he solved the problem, not the problem he was solving. Engineers. I love that about him, but I want to take it further, and I described what declarative UI programming sounds like. It's natural language and being able to communicate with the machine in a way that you're less worried about how am I communicating and more about what am I solving. And lastly, this allows cross-development platforms allow for strategic decisions about how to tailor the experience to the device type. You can utilize, so the common complaint is it's not native development. Quite frankly, we're at a place where you can use plugins and different ways to actually get pretty much every near native feature available using these frameworks. So what have we found? We have found that shifting to cross-platform development frameworks has reduced the time to market by 62%. That means I'm learning 62% faster than all of my competitors. That means I'm going to leave you in the dust through my learning loops. It's easier to scale each feature. I no longer have to wait for my web team, my Android team, my iOS team. I code once, deploy multiple places. Launching your initial product is quite difficult with all of those different agile trains and Kanban boards. But think about the headache for iterative experimentation. This is actually where I think the biggest drag on our business is. Sure, you can push through that complexity to get one experience out, but pushing through it to move through really quick iteration is very much a headache for most product managers trying to understand the data that's flowing in. And lastly, as a product person, I think I have to recognize all the engineers in the room and say, you hold the keys to the car and you're the ones driving, actually. So making you happy, giving you the tooling that makes you happier and more motivated as a team, makes everyone's life much better. I'll reference Anne's talk at the very beginning of the workshop when she described the demotivating experience she had when going through layoffs. If you don't have happy, motivated engineering teams, your product dreams, you can't realize those dreams. Now, I'm going to go through some pretty basic, not basic, but must-haves around system architecture and design to be able to deliver these types of experiences. First being a unified design system. This is about creating a consistent visual language in between you and your users so you know how to communicate with each other. We have learned patterns in our head about how we interact with Google versus Meta versus every other digital product we have. When you put this together with adaptive design principles, it's all about changing the interaction model based on the device type. And so what we're doing is changing how we interact with our users based on the modality with which they want to interact with us. I'll bring this to life. It may be easier for some of your employees to work with you on a desktop computer by typing. But it may be best if they're on their mobile device just to use their voice because they're driving in the car most of the time they're interacting with you on their mobile device. Understanding that and being able to tailor your design systems to express the right modality for the right use type is very, very difficult, and it may become so much easier when you have consolidated front ends. Real-time data synchronization. Now, this is a topic by itself everyone's super interested in, and it's like a 5 to 10 hour presentation. But to accomplish this, I'm not going to go into the details around sort of client-side synchronization, going through conflict resolution, but there's a very detailed, without real-time data synchronization, it doesn't work. Think about Netflix as one of the best examples here. I pause it on my phone, I turn it on my TV, and I have immediately what I was watching. And lastly, and this is something that I'm quite passionate about, but it changes our organizational structure from being organized by device-type delivery teams to user journey delivery teams. I am less interested in expressing how to deliver the product and more interested in what my user is looking for. And the more we can take our mind space off of how are we going to do this and back on what should we be doing for our users, you will find learning loops that you couldn't even imagine because your brain space was taken up by how am I going to deliver this. Another thing that is way easier to say than it is to accomplish, slim your marketing tech stack and your customer data. Now, being able to do this takes a very complicated data mapping exercise, making very, very critical choices about what systems and what vendors you're going to utilize in your customer data platform and your marketing tech stack. If you are able to move to that world, what you're able to do is run A/B tests and multivariate tests through a common UI framework much faster than you were before, increasing your learning loops. Creating an AI-ready data infrastructure. And the sneaky thing that we've learned working with some clients is that in their customer data set, they don't have device contextual information, so the ability to then personalize by device type is non-existent because you don't even have the data set to do it. So as you're preparing for a multi-device world, please include contextual device use data in your customer data set. And when you have those types of tools and the data set up the right way, you get to omni-channel and omni-screen personalization in a way you haven't been able to do before. You can see this graphic is actually a graphic of running a multivariate test based on what type of messaging works best, both in the right modality, email, SMS, and then what type of messaging works within that space as well. Let's talk a little bit about rapid prototyping and concept design. Improving your knowledge base and democratizing your information is extremely important. We work with a client who's a fitness device manufacturer and has screens that have been in the market for the last 20 to 25 years. And they're having designers now with modern digital screens, and they're trying to ask themselves, like, what experience can I design and deliver across all of my screens? It's a simple concept, but something that we've really coached our clients on is to create a database, it's a spreadsheet, of what we call a hardware feature matrix. Basically, what are your devices out in the world? What are the GPUs running on those devices? And what types of experiences can be expressed on those devices? This guides your design team to move quickly. That's a lot of information to hold in your head. The next thing, and I'll give a shout out to one of the other vendors here, is LogRocket, because I've used their product, and they're one of the best at being able to visualize your product usage data. And they do that by device type as well. It's an unbelievable tool. Having sort of developed a hardware feature matrix, being able to track product usage data, make it easier for your design team, and also prove to internal organizations that you can do generative AI chatbots easily. This is a great use case to deploy internal generative AI chatbots with this type of knowledge where you would be able to prove out we're not sending data back to the cloud. We can start to move these types of examples into a much broader use case. As I've talked to a lot of people, the problem really is proving to the organization you're not going to send out your secrets into the LLM. The next thing, multi-device experiences are really hard to concept and test. One of the reasons why is most organizations we work with don't keep like historical devices around with their engineering teams to test on. we recommend partnering with or building your own concept lab where you have every single device type your users are using your devices on. Because you need to simulate the physical environment on the device that people are using. Now, for those that were trained in Lean like I was back in the day, go to Gemba was the phrase. You go to where people are working and you figure out how they are working. So if you're an e-commerce site and most people shop on their desktop at work, go sit at a desk with a desktop and shop your site. If most people scroll through your feed on their couch, go to a couch and sit there. That's how you do it. This is an extreme example when we were working with NASCAR. The challenges that we uncovered by going to the track and trying to deliver a real-time analytics solution for a NASCAR team, the things that you may not think about that you discover by going to where your users are physically using the product, unbelievable learning loops in a moment like that. Now, our team had to make a lot of adjustments based on their first deployment, but it was a wild success when we were able to deliver the experience. Lastly, data-driven personalization and products and using product sensor data to inform future design decisions. I loved hearing about next best action models because when you organize your product data, it's like products like LogRocket can actually help like this. Organizing your product data, you can find where there are frustration moments within your product and how you navigate those. We're getting to a place where next best action models can take your product usage data and actually suggest where within your UI users are having bad experiences and maybe the type of UI that would work or UX that would work for them to alleviate that pain. Next, I would highly recommend using machine learning models and clustering techniques to discover undiscovered customer segments. Using your product usage data, you get sort of like pattern vectors is what we would call them. And what's fun about this, and I like this sort of silly example, I'll move this way. This silly example, because as humans, we look at this and we can think of maybe a few different ways to categorize triangles, circles, squares, right? And many of you may say, this is the right way to do it. We got to do it by shape. But that might not be the way that a computer or machine learning algorithm can really pull out segments for you. And learning these things are really important. So every once in a while, you get a new view of the world, and you get to say, maybe it wasn't the shape, maybe it was the color that was the right way to design our organization to really think about user experiences and deliver those. Now, one thing, delivering adaptive experiences is more than just generative AI. It's making sure that your experience adapts itself to the modality and the context of use. Being able to meet the user where they are is super, super important to building trusting relationships. I have 2 minutes left, and I'll open it up to questions from here.
We have microphones back here, so if you raise your hand, we'll walk that over. We have one right here.
Hey, as part of this world that you're identifying, you're not really paying a lot of attention to the native experiences, which is something a lot of teams are shifting towards.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear you right well.
So we're putting a lot of emphasis on native experiences.
Correct.
And multi-device world kind of moves away from that. So how do you justify investing in that instead of the native interface?
I'm a consultant, so I'm going to have to ask you the why behind it, and then it depends. But
User experience is one of the key things.
so you're looking for the optimal user experience for each device type. What we've found is that for some places, you do need native development, right? And that is true because you want to optimize the experience for a very certain use case. I would contend that many organizations aren't in the world where they need to have the optimal experience for a particular device type. And when you're using cross-platform development frameworks like Flutter, they've been able to develop a bunch of plugins that really get you very, very close to being able to use all of the sort of like most advanced native features. As cross-platform development framework, as native platforms are putting out new experiences on their devices, in the background, cross-platform development teams are trying to figure out how to bring those experiences into the code base and make it easier to express. So it's like, for me, it's only a matter of time before you can deliver the cutting-edge experience through a cross-platform development framework, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Question as well.
I have a relatively tactical question, so happy to connect offline if it's too complicated. So during the experimentation, right? So currently we have two very strong schools. One is strong believers that you set up your metadata to standardize a unified treat versus control. But in reality, you personalize so many different. You have thousands experimentations run in parallel. So another technology we use is live data traffic splitting in the lower upper environment, close to your app, right? But I don't know what is the best practice currently in terms of test and control, or how to get that causality identified clearly when you run like thousands of tests a day.
Yeah, I'm at 0 time, so I will connect with you. It depends, really, because if you're running multivariate tests, you need to have the sample size to make sure the statistics work out. And so for me, it depends on your user base and your ability as an organization to absorb all of the data coming back to you and make smart decisions. Running multivariate tests, you need a lot of users, and you need really a high-performing team to make sure you're able to internalize and make smart decisions based on that. A/B testing is a smaller version of that between control and experiment, and you move maybe a little bit slower with personalization efforts, but you have maybe more clarity of decision and more control over the experience. So again, as a consultant, I hate to give you the it depends, but it really is one of those things based on your organizational capabilities and your user base. What is the right strategy for you in that moment? All of the above. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning.